There comes a moment in life when you stop recognizing the person you used to be, not because you lost yourself, but because you finally grew into the version you were always meant to become. Growth doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock. It doesn't wait for permission. It happens in that quiet space between who you were and who you refuse to be anymore. And the truth is, most people never talk about how uncomfortable that moment feels. Because outgrowing your old self isn't shiny. It isn't pretty. Well, it's heavy. It's confusing. It demands honesty. And honesty demands change. But once you step into that new version of yourself, your whole world shifts. Your mindset, your circle, your standards, your vision, everything levels up. And today, we're talking about that moment, the moment you finally outgrow your old self, when you stop negotiating with your potential, something in your spirit shifts in a way that's hard to explain but impossible to ignore. It's like waking up one morning and realizing the person you've been carrying around, the one full of fear, hesitation, second guessing, isn't you anymore. You stop asking for permission to become who you were always meant to be. You stop dancing around your purpose. You stop treating your own dreams like side projects. You start realizing that your potential isn't some luxury you get to use only when life gets easy. It's not a hobby. It's not an accessory. It's not something you pull out when you feel inspired. It's a responsibility. It's the one thing you owe yourself before anything else. There's a moment where excuses start to sound disrespectful to the person you know you could be. You hear yourself saying things like, I'll start tomorrow, I just need more time, I'm waiting for the right moment, and suddenly those words don't hit the same. They don't protect you anymore, they expose you. You realize you've been hiding behind soft language and soft stories because you were afraid of becoming the person you're capable of being. In that moment, that uncomfortable self-awareness is the beginning of real growth. It happens when you get tired of explaining why you haven't started yet. When you're tired of hearing yourself say the same reasons, the same cycles, the same limitations that you've outgrown but kept repeating because they felt familiar. You start recognizing how often you've chosen comfort over progress, how often you've shrunk around people who couldn't handle your ambition, people who were threatened by potential because they never activated their own. You shrink because you didn't want to be too much, but deep down you know you were never built to be small. What people don't talk about enough is how heavy potential feels when you're not using it. It sits on your chest. It follows you through your days. It keeps you up at night because you know you're capable of more. And not living up to it becomes its own kind of pain. Slow, frustrating, and quiet enough that you can ignore it, but loud enough that it never lets you forget. It's the weight of the life you haven't stepped into yet. I've seen people waste decades saying one day. I've watched them map out dreams they never intended to touch. I've seen them run in circles, convincing themselves they still had time, only to wake up years later, wondering where their chance went. One day became maybe, and maybe became too late. And the saddest part is, they didn't fail because they weren't capable, they failed because they never started. But I've also seen people flip their whole life in 1 year, not because the world suddenly gave them something, but because they finally decided they were done talking about what they were meant to do. They decided that waiting was more painful than working. They decided that repeating the same life was scarier than building a new one. They hit that point where the idea of staying the same felt like a betrayal, and the idea of evolving felt like freedom. And it always starts with a declaration. A quiet one sometimes. A simple sentence spoken in the middle of an ordinary day. I'm done talking about it. I'm done dreaming about it. It's time to build it. Those words change everything because they mark the moment where your excuses lose their power and your purpose takes over. They mark the moment where the old version of you starts fading because the new version refuses to wait any longer. That shift is internal before it ever becomes external. You don't wake up with a new job, a new body, a new mindset, a new life overnight. You wake up with a new decision, a new level of discipline, a new non-negotiable standard. And from that point forward, even if the world doesn't see it yet, you know something inside you has already changed. You know you're done wasting what you've been given. You know you're done talking yourself out of opportunities. You know you're done settling for a life that doesn't match your potential. Accountability becomes your new language. You stop blaming circumstances and start building solutions. You stop looking for shortcuts and start stacking real progress. You stop waiting for motivation and start relying on commitment. You understand that potential doesn't turn into results without pressure, and pressure doesn't break you. It builds you. You realize that no one is coming to save you, but it's the best news you'll ever receive because it means you're finally in control. And once you feel that shift, the old you simply doesn't fit anymore. That version of you that played small, the version of you that lived for approval, the version that dodged responsibility, the version that hid its light because shining felt unsafe, that version doesn't survive in your new mindset. It dissolves. It becomes a memory of who you used to be, not a description of who you are now. That's the moment you truly outgrow your old self. Not when your life changes, but when your mind changes. When you look at your potential and instead of being intimidated by it, you feel obligated to honor it. When you stop negotiating with your greatness and start stepping into it. When you realize the future you want won't build itself, you have to build it. Brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. And from that moment on, you never see yourself the same way again. When your environment starts to feel too small for your spirit, it doesn't happen loud. It doesn't happen with fireworks or big announcements. It happens quietly in moments you don't even recognize at first. You wake up one day and realize the world you built around your old self can't hold the version of you that's trying to grow. It's like breathing in a room that used to feel comfortable, but now the air feels thin. The walls feel close, and something inside you knows you can't stay there forever. You're not changing because you think you're above anyone. You're changing because your spirit is stretching in ways your surroundings can't support anymore. There's a shift that happens when your vision expands. The same conversations that once felt entertaining now feel repetitive. The same environments you used to crave now feel draining. The same routines that once felt normal now feel like a step backward. It's not that the world around you changed. It's that you did. And when you grow internally, the external world eventually becomes too tight, too predictable, too small to contain the new thoughts, new dreams, new discipline forming inside you. It's like trying to fit a bigger life into a mindset built for survival. You can't force expansion into a space designed for your old limitations. You can't step into a new level while standing in the same energy that kept you stagnant. Growth requires environment. Ambition needs room. Purpose needs oxygen. Destiny needs distance from everything that keeps you too comfortable to evolve. No matter how strong your spirit is, if the environment is wrong, the growth will suffocate. And this is where the loneliness comes in. Not because you don't love the people around you, not because you think you're too good for anyone, but because the version of you that's emerging no longer matches the energy you're surrounded by. You could be in a room full of people you've known forever and still feel mentally disconnected, spiritually distant, emotionally separated. It's not about judgment, it's about alignment. The truth is, some people only fit with who you used to be. They fit the version of you that played small, that avoided change, that lived in distraction, that didn't know its own value yet. And when you start breaking out of that, the connections start breaking too. You'll notice it in conversations. Someone cracks the same jokes about the same drama, and you sit there realizing you're not even interested anymore. You'll notice it in habits. The things you used to do for fun no longer feel like fun. They feel like escape. You'll notice it in energy. The environments that once felt comfortable now feel heavy, like your spirit is being pulled backward every time you step into them. It's not personal, it's transition. It's the universe nudging you towards something bigger. Think about the people who try to stay in places they've outgrown. You can see it in their eyes, the frustration, the restlessness, the quiet sadness of knowing they're capable of more but too afraid to leave what's familiar. You can see the potential fighting for space inside them, trying to break free from surroundings built for an older version of their life. Staying in a place that no longer matches your spirit is one of the fastest ways to kill your own momentum. You can't grow when you're spending all your energy trying to squeeze yourself into spaces you've already evolved past. Sometimes the separation is painful. You lose people you thought would be lifelong. You detach from circles you once depended on. You walk away from routines that felt like home. But what you don't realize at first is that you're not losing anything. You're shedding. You're letting go of versions of yourself that can't come with you. You're creating space for opportunities that match your future, not your past. And that space is necessary. Before something new can grow, something old has to be released. The hardest part is when people around you don't understand. They'll say, you've changed. And they're right. They'll say you're acting different, and you should be. They'll accuse you of distancing yourself. But growth demands distance, not because you don't care, but because staying in the same place will require shrinking your spirit, and you've already done enough of that in your life. Once you outgrow a space mentally, emotionally, spiritually, staying there becomes a form of self-betrayal. You start noticing the difference between support and stagnation, the difference between people who uplift you and people who drain you, the difference between environments that challenge you to evolve and environments that encourage you to stay the same. You become intentional about what you consume, conversations, habits, people, energy. You start choosing rooms where your future is welcome, not just your past. In the lonely moments, the ones where it feels like nobody gets it, those are part of the elevation. When a butterfly is transforming, it's alone. When the seed is growing roots underground, it's unseen. When the spirit is evolving, it's misunderstood. Nobody talks about how tight the cocoon gets before the breakthrough. Nobody talks about the pressure, the stretching, the discomfort that comes right before you break into a version of yourself you've never met. That pressure is a sign you're close. That discomfort is proof that expansion is happening. That tight feeling in your environment is the universe telling you it's time to move, time to grow, time to rise. And when you finally step out of that too small environment, you realize something powerful. It wasn't the world that was limiting you, it was the room you were standing in. Once you step out into a space that matches your spirit, everything changes. Your confidence, your creativity, your mindset, your pace, your energy. You start becoming the person you always knew you could be. The world feels bigger, opportunities feel clearer, and your future finally feels like a place you belong. When you finally outgrow your old self, something changes in the way you move. Discipline stops feeling like a burden you have to carry and starts feeling like a gift you're giving to the future version of you. It stops being punishment and becomes a form of self-respect, one of the highest forms, because it's the way you show yourself that your dreams matter, your time matters, your peace matters, and your life is worth building with intention. People think discipline is about restriction, but once you elevate, you realize it's actually about freedom. The freedom that comes from knowing you're no longer controlled by your impulses, your distractions, or your old habits. The freedom of knowing you have the strength to choose what's hard now so life can be easier later. You start waking up earlier, not because someone told you to, but because your purpose is louder than your pillow. You say no without guilt because you finally understand that protecting your energy is a priority, not a problem. You work in silence because you're no longer addicted to being seen. You're addicted to becoming real. You cut distractions not because you're antisocial, but because you've reached a point where your focus is worth more than temporary entertainment. You protect your mental space because you've learned how expensive it is to let negativity rent room in your mind. These things become your default, your lifestyle, your rhythm. And the most powerful part is that nobody forces you into it. You choose it yourself. You choose it because you finally understand what your future costs. You understand that dreams demand sacrifice, growth requires discipline, and elevation comes with a price that laziness will never be able to afford. You recognize that every version of you you've ever wanted to meet lives on the other side of consistency, not comfort. People talk about change like it's some magical transformation, but real change is simple. It's choosing your goals over your excuses again and again. It's choosing progress over pleasure. It's choosing the long-term reward over the short-term hit. It's the moment you realize comfort has been robbing you quietly, gently, politely, stealing your time, your energy, your potential, while pretending to keep you safe. But when your vision grows stronger, you stop falling for that illusion. Comfort stops feeling like peace and starts feeling like a trap. And that's when discipline becomes the key that unlocks your next level. There's real science behind this too. Studies show that people who build long-term habits instead of waiting for motivation are the ones who actually achieve lasting success. Motivation comes and goes. It's emotional, unstable, inconsistent. But habits are structural. They become part of who you are. They turn your goals from something you chase into something you embody. It's a brick-by-brick process, slow but steady, simple but powerful. Every day you show up, even in small ways, you're laying another brick in the foundation of the life you want. Some days the bricks are heavy. Some days the bricks feel light, but every brick counts. Your old self was controlled by feelings, what you felt like doing, what you didn't feel like doing, what felt comfortable, what felt easy. Feelings are temporary. They're influenced by weather, by moods, by people, by noise, by everything outside of you. When you rely on feelings, your progress becomes unstable, unpredictable, chaotic. You start strong, you stop early. You're consistent for a week, then inconsistent for a month. That cycle keeps you trapped in the same life, the same patterns, the same level. But your new self doesn't move off emotion. It moves off commitment. Commitment is deeper. It doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what you want your life to become. It doesn't care if you're tired. It cares if you're growing. It doesn't stop because the past gets harder. It adjusts and keeps going. Commitment turns discipline into a lifestyle instead of a phase. And once you make that shift, you start trusting yourself in ways you never did before. You stop doubting your ability. You stop quitting when things get inconvenient. You build internal confidence, the kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself. And that self-respect becomes addictive. You start craving structure, craving progress, craving the feeling of becoming someone you're proud of. Every time you choose discipline, you add another layer to your identity. You start seeing yourself as capable. You start acting like someone with purpose. You start thinking like a leader, not a follower. You stop needing validation because your work ethic validates you. You stop waiting for inspiration because your habits carry you. You stop fearing failure because you know discipline will always bring you back. This is what people don't understand about elevation. It's not glamorous. It's not about showing off. It's about showing up. It's not about loud results. It's about quiet choices. It's not about proving anything to anybody. It's about proving everything to yourself. Discipline is the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. It's the difference between potential and reality. It's the one thing your future will thank you for every single day. And when you reach that point, when discipline becomes a form of love, not a form of punishment, you realize you're not just outgrowing your old self. You're building a new one, a stronger one, a wiser one, a version of you who knows that greatness isn't a moment, it's a lifestyle. It's built in the early mornings, the quiet nights, the lonely decisions, the unglamorous consistency. The world may not see the work right away, but eventually it will see the results. And the results will speak for the discipline you chose when nobody was watching. When you start moving with purpose, something shifts inside that you can't fake, and it changes the way the world interacts with you. You stop feeling like you have to justify yourself to everyone around you. You stop trying to prove that you're capable, that you're talented, that you belong. That energy, the constant need for validation, becomes exhausting once you grow past it. You start realizing that the people who doubted you, who laughed, who questioned your ambition, never really mattered in the first place. Their opinions are just noise. And when you focus on your purpose, noise doesn't reach you. Your energy becomes sacred. Your focus becomes unstoppable. Chasing validation is a trap. It makes you move for everyone else except yourself. It turns your life into a performance, and performances are exhausting because they're based on reaction, not creation. When you grow, you realize you don't need to explain your dreams to people who can't see beyond their own limitations. Their limitations aren't yours. Their fears aren't yours. And when you continue seeking their approval, you're only giving away your power. Outgrowing the old self means stopping that. It means understanding that your value isn't measured by applause, likes, compliments, or recognition. Your value is intrinsic. It's built into the fire in your spirit, the goals you chase, and the discipline you carry. That value doesn't need to be confirmed externally. Purpose becomes personal when you elevate. It becomes intimate. It becomes spiritual. It's no longer about convincing the world to understand you. It's about understanding yourself. It's about knowing why you're doing what you're doing, even if nobody else gets it. When your purpose is clear and internal, you stop wasting energy on external approval. You stop getting pulled into unnecessary comparison. You stop bending yourself to fit expectations that were never meant for you. And that clarity is liberating. It frees your mind from distractions, your heart from doubt, and your body from energy drains. Once your purpose is internalized, it guides you, even when the path is unseen, even when the odds are stacked against you. It makes you one. Think about athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, anyone who's ever reached a level of success that seemed impossible at first. There's always a period when nobody believes in them. People doubt. People criticize, people laugh, but there's that one individual who never stops. They keep grinding in silence, putting in the work day after day, believing in something bigger than what the world can see. There's a story about an athlete who trained for years in obscurity. No one believed in him. People mocked him. Coaches turned him down. Fans laughed. He had nothing but faith in his process and trust in his own vision. Years later, when he finally made it, everyone claimed they always knew he would. But the truth is, while they were watching, he was building. While they were doubting, he was proving to himself what he was capable of. That's how growth works. That's how elevation works. People won't recognize your progress until they have no choice but to. And even then, their recognition is secondary. What matters is that you recognized your own potential and your own ability first. Moving with purpose is different from moving for proof. Proof is external. It's about showing the world that you're capable. Purpose is internal. It's about fulfilling the life you're meant to live. Proof can be fleeting because it relies on perception, opinions, and acknowledgement. Purpose is steady because it relies on conviction, vision, and alignment with your own truth. Once you understand this, your actions start to change. You start choosing projects, relationships, and opportunities that align with your goals, not ones that will impress others. You start speaking less and doing more. You stop chasing applause and start chasing impact. Your motivation comes from internal alignment rather than external applause. The moment you operate from purpose instead of proof, life becomes less about ego and more about meaning. You begin to see challenges not as threats to your credibility, but as tests of your alignment. You stop fearing judgment because judgment no longer determines your value. You start making decisions based on whether they move you closer to your goals, whether they feed your growth, whether they honor your vision. Every step you take is intentional. Every choice is calculated. Every sacrifice is weighed against the life you're building, not the opinions you're avoiding. This shift is subtle but powerful. It separates those who achieve lasting success from those who are constantly performing just to be seen. And here's the thing, moving with purpose requires patience. It requires endurance. It requires trusting the process, even when nobody is watching, when nobody is believing, when nothing seems to be happening. It requires building faith in yourself, even when the results aren't immediate. Purpose demands that you stay committed when recognition is absent, and that you keep walking even when the path is lonely. It's during these moments, the quiet, unseen moments, that the real work is done, the real growth is achieved, and the real strength is built. People see the results later, but the transformation happens in the silence, in the grind, in the consistency, in the refusal to be swayed by external opinions. Once you've reached that level, you realize that applause isn't necessary, approval isn't required, validation isn't a factor. What matters is alignment. Are your actions aligned with your vision? Are your habits aligned with your goals? Are your thoughts aligned with your purpose? Alignment becomes your compass, your metric, your anchor. You measure success not by recognition, but by whether your life reflects the version of yourself you've worked to create. And the peace that comes from this alignment is unmatched. It's quiet confidence. It's unwavering focus. It's the ability to walk through the world unbothered because you know who you are, what you're capable of, and why you're here. Moving with purpose also changes your relationships. You start surrounding yourself with people who understand alignment over applause, people who respect dedication over display, people who value growth over entertainment. You stop letting casual observers influence your choices. You stop bending for approval. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. The energy you invest is now deliberate, directed, and sacred. You protect it because you understand that distractions from your purpose are the fastest way to stunt your growth. And that clarity allows you to invest more deeply in what matters. Your vision, your discipline, your evolution, your legacy. And as you continue, the old version of you, the version that needed external validation to move forward, starts fading. It becomes unnecessary. It becomes irrelevant. You no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. You no longer need to explain your dreams or justify your choices. You're moving with intent, building with consistency, and operating in a way that only requires you to understand your own path. That's the power of purpose over proof. That's the level where true freedom, growth, and influence emerge. Your life becomes an expression of your internal alignment rather than a reflection of others' recognition. It's steady, it's real, and it's unstoppable. The moment you realize you need to let go of what you once thought you couldn't live without is one of the most powerful signs that you've outgrown your old self. It's a quiet, painful, yet liberating awareness because it shows you've grown beyond old definitions of comfort, safety, and identity. The relationship you used to cling to, the friendship you used to depend on, the dream you once chased desperately, the habits you leaned on like crutches, even the version of yourself that once defined who you were, all of it begins to feel like weight. And the truth is, holding on to these things doesn't protect you anymore. Sometimes it holds you back, quietly, like chains that feel familiar but suffocating. Letting go doesn't mean losing. That's a misconception most people carry. Letting go means making space. Space for what's bigger, for what's better, for what's meant to be in your life. When you cling to the past, you're keeping room for yesterday instead of tomorrow. You hold an energy hostage that could be invested in growth, in expansion, in evolution. The hardest part is realizing that everything you cling to isn't always aligned with who you're becoming. What once felt essential now feels restrictive. What once brought comfort now brings stagnation. And that tension, the discomfort of realizing something familiar is no longer serving you, is the crucible in which transformation happens. There's a subtle but deep truth about growth. It forces you to release what's comfortable, and comfort, while tempting, can be the most dangerous trap of all. Comfort lulls you into repetition, it numbs ambition, it convinces you that stability is safety, when in reality it may be quietly killing